This is a poem that I'm very happy to read on this Halloween night. It's definitely one of my favorite Robert Burns poems, and it's called simply Halloween. Now, the Feast of All Saints, otherwise Hallow Mass, is every year prepared for by the vigil of Halloween. And, as that evening closed in upon every 31st of October, according to a popular superstition which long prevailed, all the elves of fairyland were afoot, sprites, goblins, brownies, witches, and what not, from the borders of those uncanny regions which are so familiar to dabblers in demonology. From an early age, Robert Burns was fascinated by these folk tales, by these myths, these legends, these superstitions. These mystic themes exercised, always, a particular glamour over Burns' imagination. Now, according to the order of precedence on Halloween, the first ceremony appears to have been going out of lad and lassie hand in hand to the kale yard, and there, with their eyes shut, would pull a stalk or root of kale. Did earth stick to it, that signified fortune, while, accordingly, as the stalk tasted sweet or bitter, the quality of the predestined wife or husband was supposed to be foreshadowed. Another mystic rite was the burning of nuts, two and two. If they burned silently, side by side, or if they started apart with a bang, good or evil was prefigured to the courtship. Now, eating an apple with a candle in hand, before looking-glass, when alone, gave you the chance, again, of seeing in the glass the shadowy resemblance of your future partner, peering at you over your shoulder. It was in celebration of mysterious ceremonials such as these that Burns penned the following poem, in which, as in a magic mirror, though the superstitions themselves have all but completely died out, their memory, at least, is perpetuated. And the start of this poem is a quote from Goldsmith. Yes, let the rich deride, the proud disdain, the simple pleasures of the lowly train. To me more dear, congenial to my heart, one native charm than all the gloss of art. And here is Robert Burns' Halloween. Upon that night when fairies light on Cassilis Downans dance, or o'er the lays in splendid blaze on sprightly curses prance, or for Colean the rout is ta'en beneath the moon's pale beams, they are up the Cove to stray and rove among the rocks and streams, to sport at night. Among the bonnie winding banks, where Doon rins wimplin clear, where Bruce ance ruled the martial ranks and shook the Carrick spear, some merry friendly contra-folk together did convene, to burn their nits and pour their stocks, and hold their Halloween for blythe that night. The lassies feet and cleanly neat, mair braw than when they're fine, their faces blythe for sweetly kythe, hot leal and warm and kine. The lads say twig wi' woorbabs, we'll knotted on their garden, some unco blate and some wi' gabs, car lassies' hearts gang startin, whiles fast at night. Then first and foremost, through the kale their stocks mun all be sought ance. They stick therein and grape and wail for muckleains and strotons. Poor Haverel Will fell off the drift, and wandered through the bowkale, and put, for want of better shift, a runt was like a sow-tail, sae both that night. Then strut and crooked, yerd or nane, they roar and cry and truther, the very wee things tuttle and rin, with stocks out o'er their shoulder, and give the costocks sweet and sour, with jock's legs they taste them. syne cosily aboon the door, with canny care they placed them to lie that night. The lasses straw frae among them all, to pull their stocks o' corn, but Rab slips out, and jinks about, behind the muckle thorn. He grippit Nelly hard and fast, loud skirled o' the lassies, but her tap pickle maist was lost, when quittlin in the foss house wi' him that night. The old midwife's will o'er the nits are round and round divided, and mony a lad and lass's fates are there that night decided. Some kittle cothie side by side, and burn the gither trimly. Some start a war with sussy pride, and jump out o'er the chimney, for hythe that night. Jean slips in twa with Tintier. What 'twas she would not tell, but this is Jock, and this is me, she says until herself. He pleased o'er her, and she o'er him, as they would never mair part, till fluff, he start up the lum, and Jean had ever a sair heart to see it that night. Poor Willie, wi' his brow kail runt, was brunt wi' primsy Mally, and Mally, nae doubt, took the drunt, to be compared to Willie. Mal's knit lap out wi' prideful fling, and her fit hit brunted, while Willie lap and swore by Jing, it was just the way he wanted to be that night. Nell had the foss house in her mind. She pits herself in Robin. In love and glees they sweetly join, till white and a's they're sobbing. Nell's heart was dancing at the view. She whispered Rob to look for't. Rob Stowlands plied her bonny mow, for cosy in the nook for't, unseen that night. But Marin sat behind their backs, her thoughts on Andrew Bell. She leaves them gashing at their cracks, and slips out by herself. She slew this yard the nearest tax, and to the kiln she goes then, as darklins grap it for the barns, and in the blue clew throws them, right feared that night. And aye, she went, and aye she swat, aye what she made nae jakin, till something held within the pot, good Lord, but she was quaking. But whether 'twas the deil himself, or whether 'twas a bokken, or whether 'twas Andrew Bell, she did no wait on talking to spare that night. Wee Jinny to her granny says, "Will you go in, me granny? I'll eat the apple at the glass I got frae Uncle Johnny." She fluffed her pipe with sic a lunt, in wrath she was sae vapouring. She noticed no, and Asen brunt, her braw new worset haperin, out thro' the night. "Ye little skippy liver's face, how dare ye try sic sporting, as seek the foul thief ony pace? Nae doubt but ye may get a sight. Great cause ye hae to fear it, for mony a ane has got it right, and lived and died to lear it, on sic a night. Ye hearst afore the shire moor, I mind as well as yestreen. I was a glipply then, I'm sure, I was now past 15. The simmer had been cold and wet, and stuff was unco green, and I a rattan kern we got, and just on Halloween it fell that night. Our stribble rag was Rob McGreen, a clever sturdy fella. He sin got eppy sim with Ween, that lived in Acamella. He gat hemp seed, I mind it weel, and he made unco light o' it, but mony a day was by himself, he was sae sairly frightened at very night. Then up gat fletching Jamie Fleck, and he swore by his conscience that he would saw hemp and a peck, for it was all but nonsense. The old guidman wrote down the puck, and out a handful gied him. Syne bade him slip frae among the folk some time when nane 'ud see him, and try it that night. He marches through among the stacks, though he was something certain. The grape he for a harrow tax, and hurls it at his curbin. And every now and then he says, "Hemp seed, I saw thee, and her that is to be my lass, come after me and draw thee at fast this night. He whistled up Lord Lennox March to keep his courage cheery. Although his hair began to arch, he was sae flayed and eerie. Till presently he hears a squeak, and there a grain and gruntle. He by his shoulder gave a kick, and tumbled with a whintle out o'er that night. He roared a horrid murder shout, in dreadful desperation, and young and old came ramming out at hear the sad narration. His sword was Hilch and Jane Macraw, or coach and Mair and Humphrey, till stop she trotted through them all, and wha was it but Grumphrey a steer that night? Meg fain wad to the barn had gane, to win 3 wicks o' Nathan, but for to meet the dale her lane, she put but little faith in. She gives the herd a pickle nits, and 2 cheeked apples, to watch, while for the barn she sets, in hopes to see Tam Kipples that very night. She turns the key with canny thraw, and o'er the threshold ventures, but first on Sonny gives a call, syne boldly in she enters. Her Antin rattled up the war, and she cried, Lord preserve her, and ran through middle roll and awe. She prayed with zeal and fervour full fast that night. They hoyt out will, with sair advice, they hecked him and fine braw ane. It chanced the stack he fat him thrice was timmer propped for thawing. He taks a swirly old moss oak for some black growsome carlin, and loot her winds and raise a stroke, till skin and blipes came hurling af sneeves that night. A wanton widow Leesy was, as canty as a kittlin, but och, that night amang the shaws she got a fearful settling. She thro' the winds and by the cairn, and o'er the hills gaed screevin', where 3 lairds' lands met at a burn, to dip her left lark sievin', was bent that night. Whiles o'er's a linn the burnie plays, as thro' the glen it whippin', whiles o'er a rocky scrap it strays, whiles in a wild it dippet, whiles glittered to the nightly rays, with bickering dance and dazzle, whiles cookit underneath the braes below the spreading hazel, unseen that night. Among the brackens on the brae, between her and the moon, the Dell, or else an outer clay, got up and gaed a croon. Poor Lizzie's heart missed lamp the hool, near Laverick height she'd jump it, but missed a fit, and in the pool out o'er the lug she plummet with a plunge that night. In order, on the clean hearth stane, the luckies 3 are ranged, and every time great care is ta'en to see them duly changed. Old Uncle John, o'er wedlock's joys, St. Mars years did desire, because he got the tomb dish thrice, he heaved them in the fire in wrath that night. With merry songs and friendly cracks, I wot they did na weary, and unco tales and funny jokes, their sports were cheap and cheery. Till buttered scones with fragrant lunt set all their gabs a steering, syne with a social glass o' strunt they parted off careening, full blythe that night. And happy Halloween.